was kicked out of my son's wedding. The bride said my presence would make the atmosphere heavy. And he didn't say anything. He just lowered his head. But no one expected what happened next, because among the guests was a judge, and she recognized me. I'm going to tell this story the way it happened. No embellishment. Because you need to know that sometimes life takes turns we can't even imagine. I was 19 years old when I got pregnant with my son. 19 years old, and with a naivety that makes me feel sorry for myself today. His father was handsome, spoke nicely, promised marriage. He said he would take care of me and the baby, that we would be a real family. I believed every word. Raphael was born on a March Saturday. Natural childbirth, painful, but when they put him on my chest, I knew he was the love of my life. Tiny, reddish, crying loudly. My son, my responsibility, my entire world. The father stayed for a few months. He pretended to be happy, but I saw in his eyes the despair of someone who felt trapped. When Raphael turned 3, he simply disappeared. Took his clothes on a Tuesday morning and left. Didn't even leave a letter. No explanation. Just an absence that hurt more than any fight. I was left there, 22 years old, with a small boy and a whole world to face alone. My mother had died 2 years earlier. My father hadn't spoken to me since he found out about the pregnancy. I had no siblings, no family. It was just Raphael and me against everything. The first years were the hardest. I worked during the day in a clothing store, and at night I cleaned offices. Raphael stayed with Mrs. Maria, a neighbor who took care of children for a few coins. I would leave home at 7 in the morning and return almost at midnight, arriving dead tired, but I would still bathe him, tell him stories, help with homework. There were nights when I cried in the bathroom, from exhaustion, loneliness, and fear of the future. But the next morning I would wake up, make coffee, get him ready for school, and carry on. Because that's what mothers did. They carried on. When Raphael turned 8, I got a better job. A house cleaner in a big house in the southern zone. The family was good to me, treated me well, paid me fairly, and it was there that I met Mariana. Mrs. Helena was a doctor, a plastic surgeon, beautiful house, imported car, organized life. But she was a cold woman, one of those who works too much and forgets she has a family. Her husband was also a doctor, but he spent more time at his mistress's house than at home. And in the middle of all this was Mariana, a 6-year-old girl, skinny, always with messy hair, sad eyes. She spent her days alone with the nanny, who barely looked at her. When I arrived to clean, she would cling to me. She followed me around the house, asking if I needed help, if she could accompany me. She was a child starved for affection, the kind you look at and see needs a hug, a chat, attention. Things that were abundant for me since I was used to caring, loving, being present. I started giving her more attention. I would chat while cleaning, ask about school, about her little friends. She blossomed, started smiling more, talking more. When I left, she would stand at the window waving, until I disappeared around the corner. Mrs. Helena noticed the change. "I don't know what you've done with Mariana, but she is happier," she said one day. "Keep it up." And I continued. For 3 years, twice a week, I was not just the house cleaner. I was the person who saw Mariana, who talked to her, listened to her school stories, praised the drawings she made. There was a day when she said to me, "Lucia, could you be my mother too?" My heart nearly stopped. I explained to her that I already had a son, that she already had a mother, but that it didn't prevent us from liking each other very much. And she understood, in the way that children understand matters of the heart. When the family moved to another neighborhood, Mariana cried. I cried too, but that's life. People come into our lives, leave their mark, and move on. I never heard from her again, until the day of my son's wedding. Meanwhile, Raphael was growing up. Smart, studious, well-mannered boy. He never gave me any trouble at school. Always got good grades, always praised by the teachers. I was so proud of him that sometimes it hurt my heart. When he turned 15, I managed to move to a better apartment. 2 bedrooms, in a newer building. It wasn't luxurious, but it was ours. I decorated his room with care, bought a study desk, and filled the wall with photos of us. At that time, I was already working at a cleaning company. More regular hours, better pay, official contract. Life had become organized. It wasn't easy, but it was ours. Me and my son against the world. Raphael never complained about not having a father, never asked much about him. I think he understood from a young age that we were a different family, but one that worked, that the love I felt for him was enough for two people. When he turned 17, he started talking about college. He wanted to study law. I was happy and terrified at the same time. Happy because my son had big dreams. Terrified because I didn't know how I was going to pay for it. But we found a way. We always found a way. He studied like crazy for the entrance exams. I did overtime, saved every penny. I sold my few pieces of jewelry, even the rings that were my mother's. Also, he could have a chance to study. When the college entrance exam results came out and he passed, I cried for 3 days straight. Tears of joy, pride, and relief. My son in college. My son a lawyer. Who would have thought that the daughter of the woman who did laundry would raise a doctor? The years in college were financially tough, but they were the happiest of my life. Raphael would come home full of stories to tell. He talked about his professors, friends, and the subjects he was learning. I listened to everything attentively, even though I didn't understand half of what he was saying. He always included me in his plans. "Mom, when I graduate, I'm going to buy us a house. You won't have to work anymore. Mom, when I have an office, you will be the secretary." They were boyish dreams, but they filled me with hope. During all those years, I was everything to him. Mother, father, friend, counselor. When he had doubts about his future, it was me he talked to. When he fought with his girlfriend, it was my shoulder he cried on. When he felt sick, I was the one who took care of him. I was his safe harbor, the place where he knew he would always be loved. He graduated with honors. At the graduation ceremony, he called me on stage. I want to thank my mother, who gave up everything so that I could get here. I climbed that stage trembling, in a borrowed dress and tight shoes, but feeling like the most important woman in the world. After college, he got a good job in a big firm. He started earning well, dressing better, and moving in different circles. And that's when things began to change. At first, I didn't even notice. I thought it was normal for him to want independence, to want to grow, to be an adult. He moved out, rented a small but nice apartment. He came to visit me every weekend, had lunch with me on Sundays. The routine stayed more or less the same. But gradually, I started noticing a difference. He talked less about work, shared less about his friends. He seemed more distant, more reserved. When I asked if everything was all right, he would say yes, that he was just tired. It was when he met Fernanda that I began to understand what was happening. She was the daughter of a businessman. A wealthy, well-connected family with a surname that carried weight in the city. A beach house, an apartment in Sao Paulo, trips abroad every year. A completely different world from ours. The first time he talked to me about her, I was happy. My son in love, planning his future. When he said he wanted to introduce me to her, I was anxious to meet the girl who had won his heart. The first meeting was at his apartment. A simple dinner, just the three of us. She arrived all dressed up, fragrant, elegant. She greeted me politely, smiled at the right moments, talked about work, about college. She was beautiful, intelligent, well-mannered, everything a mother could want for her son. But I felt something strange, a coldness in her eyes when she spoke to me, a surface-level politeness that didn't come from the heart. She treated me well, but as if I were an obligation, something she had to endure to be with my son. After that day, the meetings became rarer. Raphael started visiting me less. Sunday lunches turned into bi-weekly lunches, then monthly. The phone calls became shorter, more objective. "Mom, I can't talk now. I'm heading out." "Mom, I'm traveling this weekend. I can't come over." "Mom, I'm swamped with work. We'll talk later." Always an excuse, always a justification. And I always accepted, always understood, always hoped that things would go back to normal. But things didn't go back to normal. They got worse. When they got engaged, I found out by chance. I ran into Raphael at the supermarket and saw the ring on his hand. "Are you engaged?" I asked. He looked embarrassed and said he had forgotten to tell me, that he had been too busy at work. Forgotten to tell me. I, who knew about every cold he had, every problem at work, every fight with a friend. Now I was the last to know about the important things in his life. The engagement lasted a year. During that year, I saw my son drift further and further away. The visits dwindled to almost none. Phone calls turned into WhatsApp messages. I started learning about his life through social media, like any stranger. The few times we did see each other, he was different. He spoke differently, dressed differently. Even his way of walking had changed. It seemed like he was playing a role, the role of the man he thought he needed to be part of that family. I tried to talk to him about it, but he would change the subject. He said he was fine, that he was happy, that it was just a phase of adjustment, but I saw in his eyes an anxiety I knew well, the same anxiety he had when he was little and did something wrong. Fernanda's family was polite to me, but distant. They greeted me when we met by chance, talked about the weather, about trivial things, but I felt I was tolerated, not accepted. I was the groom's mother they had to put up with. When they set the wedding date, I imagined I would be invited to help with the preparations. After all, I was the groom's mother, but I wasn't. I learned about the wedding details from bits and pieces Raphael mentioned. This church, that venue, honeymoon in such and such place. I bought a beautiful dress for the wedding, navy blue, discreet but elegant. I saved money for months to buy that dress. I wanted to look beautiful at my son's wedding. I wanted him to be proud of me. A week before the wedding, I received the call that changed everything. It was Raphael. His voice was a bit shaky, like when he was young and had broken something. "Mom, I need to tell you something. I already knew I wasn't going to like what was coming." "Go ahead, son." "It's about the wedding. Fernanda's family wants something more intimate, more private. It would be better if you didn't come." I was silent, completely silent. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. All the words vanished from my mouth. "Mom? Are you there?" "I'm here," I managed to say. "You understand, don't you? It's just this day. Everything will go back to normal afterward. Everything will go back to normal." As if the humiliation was just a minor detail. As if being excluded from my only son's wedding was something you quickly overcome. "I understand," I lied. Because that's what mothers do. They lie to protect their children from their own pain. "Thank you, Mom. I knew you would understand." After I hung up the phone, I cried like I hadn't cried in years. I cried out of pain, anger, disappointment. I cried for the 19-year-old girl who had dreamed of raising a son who would always love her. I cried for the woman who had given up everything to see this day come. I cried for the mother who wouldn't be at her own son's wedding. I spent the whole week thinking about what to do. A part of me wanted to call him and say everything I was feeling. Another part just wanted to accept it and move on. But there was a third part, a small but stubborn part, that wanted to go anyway. On Saturday morning, wedding day, I looked at myself in the mirror. I put on the blue dress, applied lipstick, combed my hair, and then I decided I was going to see my son get married, from a distance, without bothering, without causing any trouble. But I was going to see it. The church was beautiful. White flowers everywhere, soft music, elegant people filling the pews. I sat way in the back, among strangers, trying to go unnoticed. When Raphael walked in arm in arm with his godfather, my heart almost jumped out of my chest. He looked handsome, black suit, well-cut hair, nervous smile. He was my boy, the same boy I rocked to sleep singing Roberto Carlos, the same boy who cried when he had nightmares and came to sleep in my bed. The ceremony was beautiful. The bride was radiant. The priest spoke about love and commitment. The guests got emotional at the right times. I stayed there, quietly in my corner, trying to record every second in my memory. When they kissed and everyone clapped, I clapped too, and I cried. I cried tears of joy for seeing my son happy, and I cried tears of sadness for being there as a stranger. I was going to leave right after the ceremony. I had seen what I wanted to see, but as I stood up to leave, a security guard approached me. "Are you the groom's mother?" "I am," I replied. "I need to ask you to leave." I felt my face flush. "What do you mean?" "The family asked for you not to attend the reception." Everyone around began to look, people whispering, pointing discreetly. I was being kicked out, in front of everyone, as if I were a criminal. I looked toward the front of the church where my son was greeting the guests. Our eyes met for a second that lasted an eternity, and he looked away. He turned his face as if I were a stranger causing a disturbance. I left that church carrying a pain I didn't know existed, a pain different from all the others I had felt in my life. It wasn't the pain of death, nor the pain of abandonment. It was the pain of being alive and being treated as dead by my own son. I cried in the car. I cried while driving home. I cried lying in bed. looking at the pictures of him as a child scattered around the room. Every time I woke up in the middle of the night to take care of him when he was sick. Every time I didn't buy something for myself to buy something for him. All the conversations, all the advice, all the love I had given. In the end, it had all been for nothing. I stayed locked in the house all weekend. I didn't answer the phone, didn't check WhatsApp, didn't want to talk to anyone. On Monday, I went back to work as if nothing had happened, because that's what we learn in life, to swallow the pain and move on. But something changed in me after that day, something I couldn't quite explain. It was as if part of me had died, the part that believed a mother's love was indestructible, the part that thought a child always returns to the heart's home. 2 weeks after the wedding, Raphael called me. He talked about the honeymoon, how everything had been wonderful, about future plans. He talked as if nothing had happened, as if he hadn't kicked me out of the most important day of his life. I listened silently. I answered when he asked something. I pretended everything was normal, but inside I was empty, as if I had lost a son and gained a polite stranger in his place. Things continued like this for a while. Sporadic calls, superficial conversations, rare and uncomfortable meetings. I had a son, but I no longer had my son. I had lost him somewhere along the way and didn't know how to bring him back. Then the most unexpected thing in my life happened. 3 months after the wedding, I was at the shopping mall buying some things when a woman approached me. She was elegant, well-dressed, with neatly cut gray hair, a posture of someone used to being respected. "Donna Lucia?" I looked at her without recognition. "Yes, it's me, Mariana, the girl you took care of when I was little." It took me a few seconds to make the connection. Mariana, Mrs. Helena's daughter, the sad girl who clung to me when I went to clean their house. But now she was a grown woman, confident and successful. "Mariana, my God, how you've grown." She smiled in that way I remembered from her childhood, a smile that lit up her entire face, and she gave me a hug, a long, affectionate hug from someone genuinely happy to see me. "I've been looking for you for years," she said. "After we moved, I lost your contact, but I never forgot you. We talked right there in the middle of the mall." She told me that she had graduated in law, that she had been a judge for 5 years, that she was married and had 2 children, a beautiful life built with work and determination. "You know, it was you who inspired me to pursue law," she said. "Me? How come?" "You always told me that everyone deserved to be treated with respect, regardless of who they were or where they came from. That it didn't matter if a person was rich or poor, important or not. Everyone had value." I vaguely remembered saying those things to her when she was little. Conversations meant to teach a child to see the world with more kindness. And I carried that with me for the rest of my life. I became a judge to defend the people whom no one else defends, to give a voice to those without one, just like you did with me. We started meeting regularly after that encounter. She would invite me for lunch, introduce me to her friends, include me in family gatherings. For the first time in a long while, I felt important in someone's life. It was at one of these gatherings that she told me she had been invited to a wedding. "It's the son of an acquaintance. It's going to be very fancy at the club. Do you want to come with me?" I was going to say no, that it wasn't my scene, but she insisted. "It will be fun, and I want to introduce you to more people." On the wedding day, she picked me up at home. I was nervous, thinking I wouldn't fit in with those elegant people. But Mariana reassured me. "You look beautiful, and you belong anywhere I am because you're family to me." The hall was indeed luxurious. Expensive flowers, impeccable decor, waiters serving champagne. I felt a bit out of place at first, but Mariana introduced me to several people as if I were someone very important. It was in the middle of the party that I saw him. Across the hall, greeting the guests, was my son, Raphael, with his wife by his side, smiling for the photographers. I felt a lump in my throat. Of all the parties in the city, I just had to be at that one. Life has these cruel coincidences. I thought about leaving before he saw me, but it was too late. Our eyes met across the hall. He turned pale. I was paralyzed. Mariana noticed my change. "Lucia, what's wrong? Are you okay?" "That over there is my son," I managed to say. "Which one?" "The groom." She spent a few seconds processing the information. Then she looked at me with an expression I couldn't define. "Your son is Raphael? You know him?" "I know the bride's family. I've heard of him." She paused. "And I know you weren't invited to his wedding." I felt my face heat up with embarrassment. "How do you know?" Because I was there. I saw when you left the church. The world spun. Mariana had been at my son's wedding, had seen my humiliation, and I had no idea. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't know you were his mother. Only just now did I find out. She held my hand. And because I was so angry at that family that I preferred not to mention it. We stood there, in the middle of the party, processing the absurd coincidence of the situation. My son there, me there, Mariana there. 3 lives that intersected in a way none of us could have imagined. "He's coming over here," Mariana said. And it was true. Raphael was crossing the hall in our direction. He looked as if he had seen a ghost. He came close to us, not quite knowing what to do. "Mom," he said, "I didn't know you were here. I came with Mariana," I replied. He looked at her, confused. "You know each other?" That's when something happened that I will never forget. Mariana positioned herself next to me, held my arm, and spoke loudly, so everyone nearby could hear. "Yes, I do. This is the woman who saved my childhood. When everyone was too busy to see me, she saw me. She took care of me as if I were her own daughter. She taught me about respect, dignity, and the value of each person." Raphael was speechless. The people around us stopped talking to listen. "And today, I am a judge, thanks to her teachings, because she showed me that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, regardless of who they are or where they come from." She said this looking directly at my son, and continued, "It is an honor to be here with her, and if by chance anyone thinks she shouldn't be at a party like this, they can speak to me, because I defend those who deserve to be defended, and she deserves it." The silence that followed was embarrassing. Everyone was looking, waiting to see what would happen. My son, red with shame, not knowing where to hide his face. The bride appeared out of nowhere, all smiles, not understanding what was happening. When she saw it was me, the smile disappeared from her face. "Hello, Lucia," she said, forcing a politeness she didn't feel. "Hello, Fernanda," I replied. Mariana introduced herself as a judge, greeted the bride politely, but in a way that clearly showed her position. She was there with me, by my side. "Well, we're going to continue enjoying the party," Mariana said, pulling me to another side of the hall. And that was how I spent the rest of the night, circulating through the party alongside one of the most respected women in the city, being introduced as someone important, someone who had made a difference in a child's life. My son tried to approach me 2 more times during the night, but I was always with Mariana, always surrounded by interesting people, always too busy to pay attention to him. For the first time in a long time, I felt important, not as someone's mother, but as myself, as Lucia, the woman who had raised a child alone, who had worked her entire life with honesty, who had spread love wherever she went. At the end of the party, when we were leaving, Raphael managed to speak to me alone. "Mom, I didn't know that you two knew each other. There are a lot of things you don't know about me," I replied, and it was true. I wanted to apologize. For the wedding, for everything. It wasn't my idea to exclude you, but you accepted it, I said. "You chose." He remained silent. There was nothing he could say because it was true. I chose them because I thought it was the right thing to do, that it would be better for everyone except me. I didn't want to hurt you, but you did. We stood there, mother and son, looking at each other as if we were 2 people who had known each other for a long time, but no longer understood each other. "I love you, Mom," he said. "I know," I replied, "but loving isn't just saying it, it's doing it." Mariana appeared at that moment, said that the car was already waiting. I said goodbye to my son with a kiss on the cheek, polite but distant, as if he were an acquaintance I rarely saw. In the car, Mariana asked me if I was okay. "I am," I said, and it was true. For the first time in months, I was okay. That night, lying in my bed, I thought about everything that had happened. My son there, seeing me being respected, being treated as someone important, seeing that I was not just his mother, but a person who had her own value. In the following days, he called me several times, tried to arrange a lunch, wanted to talk in person, but I was busy. I had started going out more, getting involved in new activities. Mariana included me in everything, introduced me to interesting people. I started working as a volunteer at an NGO that cared for underprivileged children. I discovered that I had a knack for dealing with boys and girls who needed attention, affection, someone who truly saw them. It was there that I understood something important. The love I had given my son had not been wasted.